In the 2040s, the Tantalus Base is established on Mars. A team of 8 astronauts embarks on a 6-month mission to collect samples. As their mission nears its end, they prepare for pickup by the spacecraft Aurora. Vincent and Rebecca head to an excavation site but spot an approaching sandstorm. Despite Vincent's radio call to return, Kim continues digging for samples. Vincent expresses frustration with Kim's behavior and dreads the return journey to Earth. Kim complains about returning empty-handed. They receive a distress call from Captain Charles, prompting Richard to fix communication and power issues. Marco persuades Charles for a final visit to the excavation site, falsely claiming repairs are needed. Kim protests the unfairness of the situation. Richard discovers Marco's deceit and witnesses his entrapment underground. Charles and Richard attempt to rescue, with Lauren remaining above ground for safety. Kim insists on announcing Marco's demise, causing tension with Richard. The team contacts Mission Control, who grants permission to retrieve Marco despite the risks. Robert urges Charles to address Kim's behavior, but Charles insists on taking responsibility for the crew's actions. Charles, Rebecca, and Vincent return to the site, leaving Lauren and the rover. Lauren hears someone attempting to enter the rover but struggles to communicate due to storm interference. When they reach the site, Lauren is missing, leading the team to assume she fell into the pit. Vincent descends, encountering microbial growth on the rocks and experiencing panic as he recalls past trauma. The team quickly pulls him back up. Vincent reassures them he saw no one below, but Robert discovers footprints leading towards the base, puzzling them as the rover could have been used. They alert Kim to prepare for potential casualties. Richard notices 2 figures on the tracking system located 50 meters from the base. As Kim attempts to establish radio contact, Richard heads to the airlock. Meanwhile, Kim spots a strange figure approaching the base. Richard opens the airlock and Marco collapses, revealing a hole in his helmet. Shocked by Marco's zombified appearance, Richard assists him but is attacked when Marco grabs an electric drill. Richard triggers the alarm before Kim arrives, only to flee in terror upon seeing Marco. Lauren, also infected, arrives at the airlock. Richard, wounded, locks himself in another room. Lauren pursues Kim, who defends herself against the creatures. Kim incapacitates one and escapes to another room before collapsing. Richard manages to send a distress call before Charles investigates, finding Kim and facing the creatures. Charles orders Kim to suit up while attempting to hold off the creatures. Marco breaks the glass door as Kim suits up and Charles confronts him unsuccessfully. Kim exits the base, and as Charles heads for the airlock, he is stabbed by the infected astronauts. After a struggle, Charles reunites with the others, and they disable the door to contain their infected friends. Vincent complains until Kim shows him the creatures' faces, emphasizing they're no longer human. The group seeks refuge in the greenhouse dome, where Rebecca attempts to treat Charles' wound despite lacking medical expertise. Realizing his imminent death, Charles expresses sorrow for not remembering his family's faces and asks the crew to convey his thoughts to them. Suddenly, Charles grabs Robert's neck, prompting the crew to restrain him. Vincent holds Charles down until he struggles to breathe, revealing they'll never return home before passing out. Kim secures Charles to a table, fearing reanimation like Marco and Lauren. Vincent covers Charles' body, observing the infection spreading beneath the blanket. An explosion outside signals the infected astronauts escape using explosives on the airlock. As they pound on the dome's door, Charles' body convulses briefly. With communication down, Vincent volunteers to fix the system through the oxygen pipe, but experiences a panic attack, haunted by past trauma. Rebecca calms Vincent, reminding him of the team's shared fear. At the base, Vincent finds blood but begins repairs. Meanwhile, Rebecca wonders if antibiotics could counteract the infection and administers a solution to Charles. Charles' body begins shaking, prompting Rebecca to hope he's fighting the infection, but Kim clarifies it's just reflexes. After the movement ceases, Rebecca discovers the bacteria is no longer multiplying, indicating the solution slows its progression rather than curing it. Kim converts the solution into a decontamination spray. Meanwhile, Vincent contacts Aurora, but the power cuts out before he can explain the situation. Robert observes the infected astronauts returning to the base on the monitor. The team decides to lure them to the airlock and spray them with antibiotics. When one enters, the spray incapacitates it temporarily. However, Rebecca learns the bacteria is becoming resistant to the medicine. As Vincent attempts to restore power, he encounters an infected Richard. Despite his hesitation, Vincent resorts to violence, repeatedly striking Richard with his flashlight. Unaffected by the blows, Richard forces Vincent to flee through the oxygen pipe. Vincent, realizing he can seal the other end of the pipe, urges Rebecca to open the panel. The others don their helmets and pull Vincent out. Kim throws antibiotics at Richard, but he remains unaffected. Vincent and Rebecca rush to open the airlock while Robert notices Charles' reanimated body. He locks himself in with the creature, sacrificing Kim. Joining Vincent and Rebecca, Robert informs them of Kim's fate. As they flee, Robert kicks the awakening creature in anger. Reaching the rover, the infected friend stabs Rebecca in the leg, but Vincent administers antibiotics. With insufficient power, they decide to walk to the landing site. However, Rebecca's injury impedes her mobility. Vincent suggests returning to the base for treatment, but Robert argues to leave her behind, suspecting infection. Rebecca points out Robert's potential infection from Charles' attack, but he deflects, remembering another rover at the excavation site ahead there. Robert reaches the rover alone, urging Vincent to abandon Rebecca, but Vincent refuses and Robert departs alone. Vincent rushes out to stop Robert, but it's too late. As they drive, Vincent notices the infected closing in. They navigate through the sandstorm, hoping to shake off their pursuers. Vincent plans to reach the landing site by morning, relying on the sun to recharge the rover's batteries. In the morning, Vincent discovers a message from the space station about a rescue team. Unable to establish communication, he realizes Rebecca has left the rover. Following her tracks, he finds her succumbing to the infection. Despite her pleas, Vincent approaches only for Rebecca to suffocate within minutes. Her reanimated form attacks Vincent, forcing him to end her suffering. Spotting the approaching Aurora, Vincent races to the landing site. However, 3 creatures also head there. Unable to warn the Aurora due to the storm, Vincent witnesses the creatures slaughtering the rescue team. Determined, he proceeds and discovers the creatures feeding on the victims unnoticed. Among them lies a decaying body in a horrifying state. Vincent enters the ship and finds Robert in the cockpit. Despite Robert's self-awareness, signs of infection are evident to Vincent. Concerned about the risk of bringing the bacteria to Earth, Vincent is swiftly attacked by Robert. A fierce struggle ensues, during which Robert stabs Vincent's helmet. As the ship jerks and flies erratically, the fight persists. Vincent repeatedly headbutts Robert until he ceases movement. Removing his blood-stained helmet, Vincent ejects Robert's body into space. Gasping for breath, he envisions Rebecca comforting him. After composing himself, Vincent sends a detailed message to the station, outlining the events. Acknowledging the possibility of infection, he plans to crash the ship on Mars at the first sign of symptoms. As he awaits a response, the Aurora continues its flight. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.